The earth is forever changing, growing, evolving, dying. Since its birth billions of years ago, our planet has witnessed dozens of cataclysmic events. Some have changed the face of it, others have obliterated life from it. Yet each cycle has given rise to something new and wonderful, because that's the way nature intended it. But somewhere along the way, this change stopped being natural. Instead, it became a planetary reaction to human interference. And when the Earth stops changing of its own accord and is forced to adapt to our actions, there are bound to be consequences on a global scale. For decades now, climate change has been a hot-button issue, sparking raging debates between activists pushing for solutions and naysayers denying its very existence. The fact is, climate change is very real and present in our daily lives, whether we realize it or not. It is harming our health, livelihood, air quality, and even our basic food sources. India and the global south are seeing these drastic effects perhaps earlier than most. Our daily temperatures are increasing uncontrollably. Unpredictable rains are causing floods in some places and droughts in others where there never used to be either. Cyclones and tsunamis are devastating entire states, while our freshwater glaciers are melting and going the way of the shrinking polar ice caps. While climate change has impacted every individual on this planet on a different scale, there is one group of people whose lives have been most disrupted: women. It is the women of the world who face the direst consequences of climate change, being affected differently and disproportionately to men. There are a great many reasons for this, including traditional gender roles, existing inequalities, and discriminating social practices. So on top of the common financial and livelihood losses resulting from climate change disasters, women also tend to suffer emotional, personal, and social effects as well. These are their stories.
पलायन के कारण हम लोग भी अन्य लोग भी खेती करनी बहुत मुश्किल हो गई है। जो लोग गांव में खेती कर रहे हैं उनको बहुत परेशानियां उठानी पड़ रही है। गांव में कम लोग जो हैं भी वो खेती कर रहे हैं, पर लेकिन खेती करने से तो सारे जंगली जानवर आके खा जाते हैं। कम लोगों के कोई जो घर में वही करते हैं। वो जो सब जंगली जानवर रात को तो दिन को तो बंदर आते हैं, उनको तो भगा दो। रात में जो सुअर आते हैं उनको कहाँ भगाएं। जो पिछली बारिशें हुई उसके कारण हमारी गेहूं की फसल को बहुत नुकसान हुआ। खेतों में होने के बाद बारिश हुई जिससे वो गेहूं वही जमीनी में ऊपर नहीं आए, सड़ गए वो पानी के चक्कर में। अति बारिश होने के चक्कर में खेतों में वो जो प्राकृतिक पानी होता है ना, नीचे से पृथ्वी से निकलता है, वो आ गया और खेत पूरे 1-2 महीने तक पानी से भरे रहे, जिसके कारण सारा गेहूं की फसल नष्ट हो गई। फिर पीछे बोए हमने, तो पीछे बोने से लास्ट में जब आ गए हो उसको जंगली जानवर तोते खा गए, तो हमारा हाथ कुछ भी नहीं लगा। तो ऐसी खेती करने से गांव में खेती करना बहुत टफ हो गई।
This valley of Dehradun, nestling in the foothills of the Garhwal Himalayas, earlier known as the sleepy town of grey hair and green bushes, is now slowly turning into a concrete jungle of a smart city. Environmental degradation and climate change has affected us very badly. Earlier, we had comparatively moderate summers and winters. Of course, the monsoon was very heavy. But now, we have sudden storms. Our crops are getting damaged. Our fruit trees are getting damaged. The world-famed lychee of Dehradun just seems to be dropping off half-ripe with the hailstorms that seems to be coming because of all the climate change. Dehradun basmati rice is just not growing anywhere. We have lost our crops. We have lost our heritage.
సముద్రం పొంగింది 2 రోజులు ఆకాశం బాగాక 2 సార్లు సముద్రం పొంగి పెద్ద పెద్ద తెరలు వచ్చినాయి. అలా 2 రోజుల తర్వాత తెగింది. తర్వాత నీరు తెగిపోయిన తర్వాత సముద్రం ఎలా ఉంది, అప్పుడప్పుడు సముద్రం కెరటాలు పెద్దవి కొడుతుంది తుఫాను చేసినప్పుడు, నీరు వస్తుంది. తర్వాత ఆకాశం బాగున్నప్పుడు ప్రాణం ఉంటుంది.
To speak about climate change and its effect, then I have to speak about those peoples who are the least represented, the slum dwellers. So the first basic thing that came from their experiences on climate change and how their life has been changing from the last few years was definitely the water logging because of the untimely rains, because of the climate extremes. And this water logging, which stays logged in their area for a longer time, definitely triggers a lot of diseases like dengue, diarrhea, and also they remain vulnerable to that. And adding on to it is a high rising temperature. Possibly we all are facing the same issue, but for them it's a bit more because they are basically the daily wage laborers. They are the ones who are working in construction sites, are working in the open. So working in such a high temperature and humid temperature in Kolkata, it's become more and more difficult for them to work. So they are exposed to dehydration, to heat strokes and all. So that also leads them to cut down their working hours, which directly affects their income.
First of all, we have to accept the fact that the climate change is real. It is affecting us in many ways, like excessive heat during summer and untimely rain, bushfire and storm. Like if you see the recent incident of Amphan, it is affecting us till now. It's been almost 1 week and there is no broadband connection in our locality. And being a content creator, it is being very difficult actually. It is affecting my site, my blog, my channels, everything. Even there are some place where there is no electricity till now. There is no supply of water, and living in this earth is feeling like a hell.
The stories are different everywhere and every time. Tsunamis, cyclones, flash floods, each a warning delivered by an angry Mother Earth. Ironically, it is almost always those who contribute the least to climate change that bear the brunt of its adverse consequences. As mankind continues to witness these disasters across the planet, they are still treated as one-off regional concerns, despite the cause of it all being an imminent global threat. Even with the growing number of voices urging the authorities to take action, never once has every country and every nation come together as one to wage a united battle against climate change. Perhaps because in the history of humanity, never once has a single threat endangered the whole world at once. Until today. The COVID-19 crisis has changed the world and our lives forever, crippling us with a speed and spread we never thought possible. Many believe that the coronavirus is simply one in a series of inevitable responses to our exploitation of the earth and its resources, and it's only going to get worse.
कोरोना जो आज महामारी का भयंकर रूप ले चुकी है, संसार का कोई भी हिस्सा ऐसा नहीं है कि कोरोना से प्रभावित नहीं हुआ है, और ये जो है ला इलाज बीमारी है, इसका कोई इलाज भी नहीं है। मुझे लगता है कि ये जो हमारा प्रकृति के साथ असंतुलन हुआ है, उसका कारण है। प्रकृति क्या है? एक नारी का ही रूप है। वो जब खुश है तो सब कुछ देगी। आप जितना अत्याचार किसी घर की गृहिणी पर करते हो, वो सहन करती है, लेकिन जब उसकी सहन शक्ति जवाब दे देगी तो वो क्या बन जाती है? बिल्कुल रणचंडी बन जाती है, सारी मर्यादाएं लांघ देती है। ऐसे ही प्रकृति है। प्रकृति को आपने क्या किया? अत्याचार किया। बोल नहीं सकती है पृथ्वी, बोल नहीं सकती है प्रकृति, लेकिन उसके बोलने के भी अपने रूप हैं। कभी वो भूकंप के कारण, कभी बाढ़ आने के कारण, कभी किसी न किसी रूप में वो प्रभावित हुए और लोगों पर उसने अपना असर दिखाया है। कोरोना भी प्रकृति के अपमान का ही कारण है।
Across the world, the ensuing months of lockdown has forced us to isolate ourselves from each other, restrict our movements and our actions, even retrain basic behaviors, just to survive in our new post-pandemic world.
చేపల వేట ఇప్పుడు నెలలో ప్రతి సంవత్సరం కూడా చేపల వేట కట్టేస్తారు, అంటే వేట నిషేధం చేస్తారు. అందులో ఈ కరోనా ఒకటి వచ్చింది, దానివల్ల ఇంట్లో అందరూ కూడా చాలా ఇబ్బందులు పడ్డారు. అంటే వేట పని లేదు, ఇంట్లో తినడానికి కూడా ఉన్న మట్టికి తినేవారు. అలాగే ఎన్నో సమస్యలు ఎదుర్కొన్నారు. పిల్లలు 10th క్లాస్ వాళ్ళు ఉన్నారు, డిగ్రీ వాళ్ళు ఉన్నారు. వాళ్ళు 10th వాళ్ళు ఎప్పటి నుంచి సంవత్సరం అంతా కూడా చదివారు. దగ్గర రాబడికి ఎగ్జామ్స్ పోస్ట్ మార్టం అవ్వబడికి చాలా ఇబ్బందులు పడ్డారు. అంటే 10 రోజులు 15 రోజులు మళ్ళీ ఎగ్జామ్స్ అవుతుందని అనేవారు, మళ్ళీ చదివేవారు. మళ్ళీ అది కాదు ఇంకా లాక్డౌన్ పెంచారన్నారు. అలాగే ఇప్పటికీ కూడా ఇంకా లాక్డౌన్ అవుతున్నారు, కానీ వాళ్ళు చదువు అక్కడనే ఫుల్ స్టాప్ పెట్టారు. అయితే ఈ చదువు వల్ల కూడా చాలా ఇబ్బంది అవుతుంది. మేము తినే తిండి పరంగా కూడా చాలా ఇబ్బందులు ఎదుర్కొన్నాం. అయితే మరి ఇది ఎప్పటి వరకు ఉంటుందో తెలీదు.
The pandemic has brought into a sharp focus that nature has its own way of equalizing. The birds, the bees, and the butterflies all seem to be coming back. Environment seems to be refreshing itself and breathing. Women, however, are forced into new roles. They were always great multitaskers, but now additional responsibilities of work from home and managing families, as well as fighting challenges of fighting this disease, has left her very tired. Men sitting at home, men who are at times idle, engaged in domestic violence.
మోసుకి మా ఆయన తాగేసి రోజు కొడుతున్నారండి. ఆయన తల్లిదండ్రులు లేరు, ఇద్దరు ఎవరు లేరు. అడుగుతాడు ఏం చేసేటి పిల్ల ఉంది, పిల్లకి ఆచారం ఏది లేరు. నా డబ్బులు ఏమైనా అంతే ఆ డబ్బులు కాడ తీసేసుకుంటాడు. స్కూల్ కాడ లేవు, స్కూల్ కన్నా పిల్లకి ఓ పాట అన్న పెడితే ఓ పాట ఎట్టడం ఎట్టపోనా కబడ్డీలో ఏనుకొచ్చావు.
Whenever and wherever in the world disaster strikes, men and women may suffer the destruction as one, but the aftermath is where the real differences begin to show. In the wake of any calamity, it is the women who are expected to adjust to the harsh realities of their new circumstances, even as they continue to fulfill the traditional roles and obligations of their previous lives.
भारतीय सामाजिक संगठन और भारतीय सामाजिक व्यवस्था में महिलाओं की स्थिति कभी पुरुषों के समान नहीं रही। चाहे कानूनी रूप से उन्हें समान मान लिया जाए, लेकिन हम व्यवहारिक पक्ष देखते हैं तो समानता परिवारों में या समाज में हमको दिखाई नहीं पड़ती।
कोविड-19 में महिलाओं और पुरुषों पे
मतलब बीमारी के हिसाब से तो एक सी चीज है, ये बीमारी है, ये किसी को भी हो सकती है, पुरुषों को भी हो सकती है, महिलाओं को भी हो सकती है, लेकिन घर गृहस्थी के हिसाब से महिलाओं पर इसका ज्यादा प्रभाव पड़ा है।
अगर हम प्राकृतिक रूप से देखें और अपनी सामाजिक व्यवस्था के अनुसार देखें तो महिलाएं इससे ज्यादा प्रभावित होती है, क्योंकि महिलाएं घरों में रहती है, घर में आपके बड़े बुजुर्ग हैं, बच्चे हैं, बीमार होती है तो उन्हें महिलाएं संभालती है, बच्चा बीमार हो गया तो महिलाएं संभालती है, घर के आर्थिक साधन कम है तो अपनी बच्चों की आवश्यकताओं को पूरा करने के लिए, परिवार की आवश्यकताओं को पूरा करने के लिए अपनी आवश्यकताएं कम कर देती है।
Under the guise of tradition and societal expectations, in a world still dictated by patriarchy, women of all ages and backgrounds are still forced to sacrifice their education, their choices, and their freedom in order to dedicate their lives to taking care of their family and its daily needs.
मेरे हिसाब से तो ग्रामीण महिलाओं की सबसे खराब स्थिति होती होगी इस परिवेश में, क्योंकि उन्हें घर का काम भी करना है, खेतों में भी वो पुरुषों के बराबर काम करना है। जब कभी ऐसी आवश्यकता होती होगी कि महिलाओं को लगता हो कि मेरा कार्य बटाने के लिए मुझे किसी की सहायता की आवश्यकता है, तो शायद वो अपनी बेटियों को पढ़ाई से रोक लेती हैं, क्योंकि बेटों को तो लगता है कि इन्हें आगे भविष्य में कमाना है, बेटियां पढ़ के क्या करेंगी, तो वो बेटियों को रोक लेती हैं।
मैंने सुना पहले आप स्कूल जाती थी और अब आपने स्कूल छोड़ दिया, स्कूल क्यों छोड़ा?
मेरे मम्मी पापा बीमार रहते हैं और काम करना पड़ रहा है मुझे, और मम्मी पापा की देखभाल करनी पड़ती है, इस वजह से मैंने पढ़ाई छोड़।
इसलिए तुम्हें काम करना पड़ रहा है कि तुम मम्मी पापा की देखभाल करती हो, तुम्हारी पढ़ाई।
In this age of recurring natural disasters, where humanity is being tested every day, it is more important than ever to augment our climate action efforts with a greater understanding of its amplified impact on certain members of society.
मैं ये कहना चाहती हूँ कि जैसे कुछ भी होता है तो लड़कियों को, जैसे मतलब कोई भी प्राकृतिक आपदा आई है तो लड़कियों को बहुत सारी चीजें ऐसी होती है कि पानी में एकदम से कूदना है या पेड़ पे चढ़ना पड़ रहा है या तेज दौड़ से भागना पड़ रहा है, तो लड़कियां उसमें असफल रहती है क्योंकि बचपन से उनको ट्रेनिंग नहीं दी जाती है किसी भी काम की। तो मैं चाहती हूँ कि ऐसा होना चाहिए, लड़के और लड़की को इक्वल इम्पोर्टेंस देनी चाहिए और उन्हें स्टार्टिंग से ही सब कुछ सिखाना चाहिए, जिससे वो इन सब आपदाओं से अपने आप को लेवल पे कर सकें।
What makes women so especially vulnerable to the effects of climate change and the disasters that follow in its wake?
It has been very well documented that women are the lesser contributors to climate change but are the greater victims of it. Another imbalance that needs to be corrected for our climate efforts to meet with success. Because in reality, climate change is a matter of justice. Yet, even as we push our governments for climate justice, women around the world are fighting to endure everything from storms to starvation. While we are advocating gender equality, we are hearing horrific stories of domestic abuse and violence. How can we achieve any global effort when half the world's population is struggling to overcome gendered obstacles just to reach equal footing with her fellow men? Women need to be provided the basic tools to survive in what is still a man's world. And it has to start from the very beginning, with that single factor that can change everything: her education. Girls and young women need to have mandatory and uninterrupted access to education, no matter the circumstances, be it calamity, poverty, or society. This fundamental resolution is the key to building their capacity as knowledgeable experts who can sit across the table from men in any forum and participate in the discussions and decisions as informed representatives of their gender. This will result in more effective policy and inclusive action by virtue of having considered all gendered perspectives. If aided by strong political will, sufficient investment, effective research, and accurate monitoring measures, this systematic change can begin gender equality, and in turn, climate justice, among other things. This is exactly what we are trying to achieve with organizations like the All India Women's Conference. At this moment, the entire world stands united in the face of the sudden new threat of COVID-19. But we cannot forget the dangers of this other ticking global time bomb either. We must adopt the same urgency in our efforts as we have with COVID-19 and take decisive, collaborative, global action in the fight against climate change. We know what causes it, we have an idea on how we could fix it. It's time we did it.
Our tenacity as a species comes from the fact that we believe we make our own fate. Today, it is up to all of us to do our bit, to raise our voice, and to ensure that this planet is something that we can leave to future generations with pride.